Ron Waters. One thing I've got on my mind is the as-isness, exact duplicate. No two things can occupy the same time, place, basis of getting rid of mass in the mind. Can you explain this? All right, so for anybody who doesn't have any idea what I just read here, Hubbard explains in Scientology that the mind consists of mental image pictures, or that's the contents of the mind, are mental image pictures that people are taking and they're three-dimensional sense memories. There's not just a picture. The word picture or facsimile is used in Scientology to describe it, but it's really a three-dimensional sense image that includes all sight, sound, taste, touch, body position, muscular tenseness, like every sense that you could imagine. And Hubbard came up with a list of like 76 different senses, including, internal feelings and ideas, motion sense, are things in motion around you? Are you moving? Those kind of things, temperature. So all of these things are recorded in these sense imagery that he calls mental image pictures. The mind holds these things because Hubbard said that the brain is too small to do it. What with the neurons and everything, he claimed that he had done some calculations and that it was impossible to keep longer than 3 months worth of memories in the noggin, and that was a further proof that there must be some other thing, ergo a spiritual being, who has this thing called a mind, and the mind is only a semi-physical thing. It's something that the spiritual being or the Thetan carries around with him from life to life. He keeps his mind with him. He doesn't lose his mind. So in the mind are these sense images or pictures, and the reason I'm talking about all this is because in order to get into the nitty-gritty, the real hardcore minutia of Scientology now, that's what this question is addressed to, because in 1954 and 1955 or so, Hubbard started coming up with this idea that, okay, if we have these pictures and they're stored in the mind, and these things have a degree of mass connected to them, they're made out of energy. And it's some kind of higher form of energy. Hubbard was never very specific about what it was, but it's some form of energy that exists, that is sensed with the e-meter. See, here's the thing. Hubbard sort of got himself into a corner because he said that the e-meter registers resistance that's caused by the energy of these pictures. The picture literally moves in on the person's body and alters the mass or electrical resistance of the body, and that's what the e-meter needle is showing when you have somebody on the meter. So since he went with that, he then had to come up with this whole theory of how these pictures, how you get rid of them, right? He said that there was charge, electrical charge, connected with these pictures that would sort of, not electric shock you, not zap you, but would impinge on the person physically. And that would account for, headaches and other somatics or problems, physical problems, or things like that a person had. Like Hubbard implied or stated in certain lectures that if you had let's say a nerve issue in your arm where you couldn't feel, things below your elbow, let's say, for some reason, you had an injury or an accident or something, he made the claim that these energy pictures or these sheets of energy would actually physically be, getting in the way of the neurons and the electrical signals in the body. Now, he offered this up as one of many different explanations he made over the years. And when you follow it all, this is not a coherent whole picture that's integrated and all of these things all make sense. So, some like Scientologists could be watching this and listening to what I'm saying and going, well, that's not what I understood, because he also said, and that's totally fine. I'm not going to argue about that, because Hubbard said lots of things about this, lots of different explanations. So in 1954 and 55, when he was coming up with this business of what I'm about to explain, this was the explanation for these pictures, is the picture would exist, and in order for auditing to then work, in order for Scientology to work, somehow Hubbard had to explain what was happening to these energy pictures when auditing happened, when counseling was occurring. Like, how did they go away? Why is it that the person would get better? And his explanation for this was the sort of physical universe law. I don't know where it really comes from, but the idea that two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. I can sit here and interlock my hands, but they're not really occupying the exact same space at the exact same time. I can't meld this hand into this one, and the atoms that make up this hand can't occupy the same space as the ones that make up this hand, right? And that's, you get resistance and you get, physical differences and things like that. Well, Hubbard's theory was, or his explanation was, that when a person is in auditing, they are recalling these pictures. They're bringing them to mind, right? They're bringing them to the forefront of their awareness. And the picture always sort of exists out there if it has been, if some past trauma, like, okay, if you have an incident of a past trauma, like a car accident, and then you almost get into a car accident, or the incident is approximated again in your life later, that picture will come in on you, and it's called restimulation. It'll be restimulated by the present time environment. And once a picture is restimulated and has moved in on you, it will be affecting you. And this is how the reactive mind works at an energy level. If you want an energy type explanation for the reactive mind, most people really in Scientology don't care that much about this stuff. It's kind of esoteric. It's pretty, like I said, I'm explaining some of the deep minutia of Scientology right now. But the idea is that this picture moves in and it's, impinging on you, and now it's bothering you, and it's giving you headaches, it's giving you problems, it's giving you, whatever issue it's giving you, a bad arm, a bad leg, you got this psychosomatic illness because of this picture. So in auditing, when you recall what's happened to you in the past, you are newly creating that picture, right? You're forming a mental image idea of what happened to you, and the idea, according to Hubbard, and I don't claim that this makes any sense. This isn't valid. This isn't true, okay? But what he claimed is that because you're creating this new image, this new idea, it would be something that would occupy, once you've really looked it over and really created it and really got all the details right, it would occupy the same space and time as this original restimulated picture. In other words, you'd be recreating it newly. And by doing so, and because it's the exact same picture of the exact same incident, it does occupy the same space that restimulated picture does, and then poof, it goes away. The whole thing goes away. And Hubbard called this process, or doing this, creating an exact duplicate of something, as isness. And that's a very strange term. He sort of described this idea of isness, like a thing is. It exists, and it exists, purely in its own moment, right? And there's no time connected with it. Now it gets very, very deep and very, very philosophical because we start bringing time into it and other factors that I really just don't want to explain right now because it's very esoteric and it's hard to understand because it really doesn't make sense. Because later, for example, Hubbard talks about the idea that you're not carrying all these pictures around with you all the time. You're creating them newly every time you look at them. So that sort of blows the earlier theory that they're constantly there and constantly banging on you, right? Like those two ideas don't totally go together. And there's other contradictions that come in later with other explanations Hubbard made. So anyway, I'm sort of just kind of, not trying to gloss over this, but just trying to give enough explanation to answer this question, which is that this is how auditing is supposed to work, right? Is that the picture's there, the person creates it again newly, and it makes it go away through some poofery, sort of magic. And that's how auditing works. So there you go.